Guys, intro time.
Wait, which intro?
The wisdom check.
Oh, good.
Wait, no. I thought we were keeping the old intro. What's wrong with the old one? People like that one.
It was too long.
Yeah.
Too many fucking gifs.
Yeah.
Yeah, but can we keep the part where I yell, more?
No.
But it's the intro to end all intros.
I got, 2 lines last time?
Do you want more lines, Tim?
Well, no, not really.
In a world without answers.
Yeah.
Wait, do you want to start with that?
Here we go. Exactly like last time.
Wait, okay, so we're doing it the exact same way? Let's start with the smoky bar.
No, it's a new season. We have to have a new intro.
More.
Not sure why we thought this would go any differently.
Oh, well. Welcome, everyone, to the Wisdom Check, where Jeff and Dustin welcome a guest every week to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. Welcome.
This is ridiculous. I'm starting the stream now.
Wait, where's my die at? Well, we can't start until I botch. And it's not an intro unless I'm botching.
You're on.
And we're on, I believe, right now.
All right. Welcome, everyone, to the Wisdom Check. I am Dustin, and with me, positioned over on the other side of the screen, is Jeff. Say hello to him, Jeff.
Well, hey there. Welcome, everyone.
And joining us this week, we have Chris from Featherfall Tabletop here. Chris, say hello to the crowd.
How you doing? Ready? Finally, it's happening. I think we've rescheduled this a couple times, but
We had some scheduling snafus. We've had a lot of scheduling snafus lately. It's been kind of a thing. It's been like a rough month for us and scheduling. So we're glad we were able to get this thing worked out. Though we were able to get you on here finally. I've said for the better part of a year. We've gone a year and 2 months doing the Wisdom Check every single Monday. We haven't missed a Monday yet, and we have yet to have a repeat guest, but this is the closest that we've got because your brother Bob was on the show last August or September.
yeah.
And what we're going to
It's been a
talk a little bit about tonight is some of your guys' rebrand, because at the time you guys were Dad Bod D&D and now you're Featherfall Tabletop. And so we're going to get to that. But first, of course, we heard Bob's story. And I'm sure when you were watching at the time, you were like, no, Bob, that's not how it went down. So what I'd like you to do is tell us how it really went down about how you got into gaming.
Yeah. It's amazing how siblings can have two totally different recollections of historical past there. So actually, he's the one that got me into gaming. Bob, he's the DM over at Featherfall Tabletop. He asked me. It was February 2017, I think. 17 or 18. So I haven't been playing too long. So a couple years ago, he asked me, "Hey, you want to get in on this game? I'm running homebrew." I didn't know what homebrew was. I was like, "All right, man. Yeah, I'm in." He asked me if I wanted to play. I said, "Sure." I was into board games. That's kind of where my gaming started. If I was gonna say, pinpoint it, it'd be board games. And he knew that, I'd share pictures and stuff of playing whatever game, and he's like, "Hey, you ever play role-playing games?" I'm like, "No." "All right, you want in?" Okay, so we started playing, and it was with a group that was pretty new to him, and it didn't work out too well. There was some old school gamers in there, I think, that didn't like some of the ways that he was, skirting around some of the rules and just making it, kind of the rule of cool kind of idea. Yeah. And they were more like, "No, rules is written." And so that didn't last too long. We got maybe 5 or 6 sessions into his arc, that he spent time writing and stopped that. Picked it up again immediately into a new game. Devin at the time, who was in our group at the time, started a homebrew thing. Again, that didn't last too long. It just scheduling and sometimes what it takes to plan and run and DM a game just gets overwhelming, and I think that's what happened. So from there, we jumped into Tomb of Annihilation with Bob back DMing, and that's kind of really where I started to pick up as a role player or a tabletop role player in general. Was playing Tomb of Annihilation, which I think could be kind of a rough start,
Yeah.
To kind of cut your people say that's where I got into my role playing. Really picked.
Yeah. So, well, what's funny about that is is we really turned it into a role-playing game for us, and not that crunchy dungeon crawl thing. We kind of figured we found a sweet spot that we liked, but we did the travel rules and just the kind of module as written, and quickly found out we didn't like it, man. It took us 3 sessions to get to one of the forts up in the north, and it's like, holy cow, guys, that's not fun for any of us, you know. So we altered some of those travel rules and really focused on the role playing and turned it into something that we were really proud of, and saw some growth in my game playing. You know, at first I was coming from a board game background. I was very into the rolling and adding the modifiers and moving sequentially that way, and not so much into this kind of like fluid, hey, you could say whatever you want, do whatever you want. That was weird for me. So Tomb of Annihilation, kind of as weird as it is, got me out of that and into this like living in the world and treating it very fluid and being able to do whatever you want. So I'm super grateful for that game. And there were some great players. I mentioned Devin before. I owe a lot of my kind of role-playing chops to him. He kind of, you know, held me by the hand and showed me the way, which is super nice. So it was a good setting to cut my teeth and to figure out how this works.
So what was the approach there? Were they basically just toss you in and say, figure it out? Was it a, you know, we're going to role play, and if you role play, that's fine, but if you don't, that's cool? Or was it a, you know, like a coaching kind of thing? How did that go?
Yeah, so it was a little bit of me just like, okay, I'm taking that leap. You know, I had been in a few those homebrew games before where I was definitely a background player, just sitting back, waiting for somebody to talk to me, not really talking to anybody else. So waiting for them to come to me. And then, you know, getting into it, and you're watching, you know, the critical roles, and you're kind of just seeing other people do it. And you're like, okay, that's how you can do it. Okay, I'm going to take that step. That leap of faith moment where you're like, okay, I'm going to put myself out there. This is what my character would do, right? And you get out there and you do it. And and then having a group around you that supports that move and goes, okay, we're coming with you on this little story thread. We're going to see how far this can go. And I think that's the moment where it just kind of, that light turns on and you're like, heck yeah, I can do this, man. And it's one of those moments you won't forget. Like I will never forget that first moment in Tomb of Annihilation. We're in the middle of the jungles of Chult, and Devin's character Vinny is going to go out and go hunting, and I'm playing a younger, like teenage elven boy who didn't have a dad. And I'm like, okay, I think he would want to go hunting with him as a father figure. So I was like, hey, you know, I asked that question, hey, can I come out and go hunting with you? And I felt really vulnerable at the time, because you're kind of living that character, right? That teenage boy, and you're asking a grown man to go do something. And he said, yeah, let's go. And, you know, so it turned into this whole moment where, you know, we had this cool little hunting experience where, you know, I'm lining up to take the shot at the deer that you've seen 100 times in other movies and stuff. So it's that moment that I won't forget. And it was really them going with me, I think.
And how important is it to have a DM that will then give you the time to sit in that scene? Like DMs, sometimes I think they get caught in the trap of get to the next adventure point, get to the tower, skip the overland travel. Don't let them sit there at the camp for another hour. Things have to happen. Like, how hard is it to avoid getting caught into that trap?
Yeah, and I think that's where Bob kind of shines as a DM. Is he, as cheesy as it might sound, is he lets the players play. You know, and I know that's not putting a lot of skill on a DM, but at the same time it is, because
it is a skill.
He's picking up story points, and he's picking up background pieces that he's going to weave in later. And I think you have to be kind of an established, skilled DM to allow that to happen, to allow that narrative. Yeah, to pace it correctly, so that, okay, we're going off the page of Tomb of Annihilation. We're going to let these characters live their life here in Chult for a little bit. And yeah, it's a great moment, and it's a great DM to play for, especially if you want to be in a group that is more role play than combat. And Bob lets us do that, and I think that's that's a great, like, you know, if you're going to give him a kudos, that'd be the biggest one I'd give him.
And we did. That's actually what we talked a lot about when he was on the show.
Yeah.
I didn't catch you guys during Tomb of Annihilation. I started picking up during Dragon Heist.
Yeah.
He did the same thing there with you when you guys. Spoilers for people who haven't played Dragon Heist.
Yeah.
Where have you been, people? But you get a property, and you guys really spend a lot of time just sitting around that property, like figuring out what kind of sofa.
Yeah, yeah. We were doing the Sims Waterdeep version, and we were really into that. And it was this moment where we get to play house for a little bit, because, I mean, I can't say I've ever had a property in a role-playing game. I've never had a house, you know, that you are stationed in for a while. So let's live that up, be in that moment, and Bob let that happen, and he, you know, and he did
a great job with it, in my opinion.
Right, and again, like, those are the moments in Waterdeep that I care about the most, and less about the dragon heisting and more about, you know, building a house and having fun in there.
And even having said that, like, when you guys got done with Dragon Heist, you got through a Tomb of Annihilation, you did Dragon Heist, you did a couple modules. You didn't exactly give Dragon Heist the most stellar review when you were done with it either. So
that is true.
So you guys did a little homebrewing, and now you're a Curse of Strahd. You went back to a module. So now you're DMing. Tell us about your DMing now, like how you're taking that.
So we did Tomb of Annihilation, did Waterdeep. We had a little homebrew continuation of Waterdeep. And at that point, I felt comfortable enough to stream DM and stream it. You know, I had been playing in a home game. I mean, we can backtrack a little bit and, you know, say I picked up a home game like pretty early after I started playing with my brother. And just my brother lives halfway across the United States, so we don't share a table together. So I picked up a group around, you know, just some friends that kind of, when I told them I started playing there, interest peaked, and I was like, okay, well, I'll do a little homebrew module for you. So I'd been doing that off stream. You know, it was a total different beast. Like, I had my whole table set up, DM screen, and all the goodies, and I felt comfortable doing that. But I mean, coming to a computer where you got it's a whole different layout and a whole different skill to learn. And I finally felt comfortable enough at the end of Waterdeep, and I picked up Curse of Strahd, like you said. We jumped in. I said, okay, I'll DM Curse of Strahd. So we're doing that every other Sunday. It happened to fall on Mother's Day, so we had to postpone that. But we'll be back up in 2 weeks. So yeah, we're kind of plowing through Curse of Strahd right now. Yeah, we're liking it. I mean, to go back to Dragon Heist, there were some things in there that we did have problems with, and I'm sure there'll be things with Strahd that we'll have some issues with, but for the most part, right now, there's a lot more positives with Curse of Strahd. I think it's just it's been around longer. It's a little more solid, you know, material to work with, I think.
Now,
but we're having
can
fun.
you think of specific reasons why maybe is driving with you a little bit better? Is it the way it's being told? Is it the way it's laid out? The characters?
I think Waterdeep was advertised wrong. I was hoping for like an Ocean's 11 kind of, you know, living on that dragon heist, like kind of the name, and it just didn't pay off for us in the way we thought it was going to, and I think that left a bad taste in our mouth. And to be fair, there were a couple plot points, and this is a problem with modules, I guess, is there were a couple plot points and key details early that we didn't really get. So we spent some time later in the module going, man, why are we here? What do we do? You know, some key points that, I mean, I have not read all of Curse of Strahd all the way through. So, and Bob didn't do that with Waterdeep. So it's hard to know some of those points you're going to drop if you don't pick them up. So I think that was the biggest problem is we were billed a false set of goods there that we weren't too happy about. And I think Strahd's playing out perfectly. Like you kind of heard through the grapevine what Strahd is. So to go into, you know what you're going to get, and a little more than Dragon Heist being relatively new at the time when we ran it. But yeah, so I think we just know what Strahd is as a product and a complete module that we're able to kind of live in that world a little bit easier. In Waterdeep, we weren't.
Was it
so
a disconnect from the player side of things, or was it disconnect from the character side of things, as in finding a difficulty with in-character motivation?
Exactly, in character motivations. Like we wanted to play house. Like we wanted to, do some things. And there were a couple characters, NPCs in Waterdeep that we were like, man, screw that guy. We're gonna go get that guy. And is off the beaten path. It's off the page, but it's what our characters wanted to do. And of course, Bob's gonna let us do that. But it kind of unraveled the story a little bit, and I think what Waterdeep should have been, because it's a relatively short module. It's levels 1 through 5. So, I mean, like 20 sessions, I think you could get through Waterdeep pretty quickly if you stay on track. And we just kind of detoured from that main storyline because we just weren't buying into it. It character motivation wise, like we had some metagaming topics off air. Like, man, what are we doing? We got to figure out, the beat in the story to get this thing moving along, and it took some doing, but we got there.
One of the interesting things about Waterdeep as a module is it's technically kind of 4 modules in one. You pick a path and then you kind of end up down one of those paths. Now, in hindsight, if you've gone back and read the other paths and been like, oh, this might have been better. Like, is there another path you wish maybe you had gone down?
Yeah, so we picked there's 4 different the seasons you get to pick and again, spoilers for Waterdeep, but again, if you don't know by now, sorry. So there's 4 different seasons you get to pick, and each season has a different big bad evil guy. We picked winter just because we liked the feel of like being in a big city in wintertime, be kind of cool. So we picked that one, and the big bad evil guy in that one is Manchun, I believe. I hope I'm not forgetting. And we
might have been. Who knows?
We really didn't like. With that being said, the first 4 chapters are all kind of the same, and then chapter 5 is where you plug in your season. And there just wasn't enough build up to the bad guy. It's like all of a sudden it's like, Manchun, who the hell is this guy, and why do I care about him? Like we got that. So I think. And the funny thing is I'm running this game offline for my home group. Like I didn't have enough torture before, so I'm running it again, and I'm learning from that. They're playing in Autumn, which is Jarlaxle. I hope he's the drow. He lives up in Luskin.
Yep.
But he's in Waterdeep, taking over a little bit, and so I'm getting those threads started earlier so that when we get to chapter 5, it's not like, oh, this is the guy. Like there's a little bit of investment there, and I think that's learning. That's fixing a problem from the past. But yeah,
it's interesting because when you have a structure like that where it is intended for replayability or different experiences, it doesn't lend itself to being well teased, because the whole beginning, the first 4 chapters by design have to be neutral, or
exactly.
That needs to be kind of like shoehorned in at the end.
Yeah, and they do. I mean, to give it credit, they do a good job of placing all of those bad guys in Waterdeep. They're in the background doing things. So again, it takes a long time to focus on every single detail if you want, but it's all there, and it's all how much prep do you want as a DM? How much do you want to invest into when your bad guy's Manchun? How much time do you want to invest into Xanathar? As the other big bad guy. So it depends, but it is a cool module in concept, and I think what I like about it most is it's almost like a Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide. Is it gives you primary documents on playing in Waterdeep. And there's so much information there to run a great campaign in Waterdeep. You can throw the module aside and just use all that information about Waterdeep and have a great campaign, homebrew, whatever you want. Storm King's Thunder is kind of that way too, just about the Sword Coast in general. Like a lot of information there, but
yeah, it's cool. I mean, we typically don't do a lot of module play. We're doing it right now in my game, and
we're doing it splendidly, by the way.
What's that?
And we're doing it splendidly, by the way.
Somehow we're still alive. I don't know how that happened last week.
I don't either.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's interesting kind of seeing us hit a module and run into some of these things. Like we're so used to being in homebrew campaigns that a lot of the structuring of a module is hitting us a little askew. We're finding ourselves in these conversations like you were talking about. Dustin and I've had a few conversations about this. I'm sure they've talked to each other about things, but it comes up of like, why is my character here? I don't like the way this is paced.
Yeah.
Like, what are the motivations for this and that? And it is a little bit more challenging, since we know each other so well as gamers. We know what gets us moving and what gets the types of characters we like to play moving. And then you have this all sizes, accounted for in this one box, and it doesn't always work. So it's fascinating. It's good to see though that, in your experience, you're having, a better experience with a different module. And so maybe there is some more fertile ground in some of these other ones.
I kind of think of it like the person that's used to wearing tailored suits who then has to go put on like just a regular suit. Like when you're gotten used to tailored suits, you can't go back to a non-tailored suit. It just doesn't seem like it was made for you. Like that's kind of how going from homebrew to a module is sometimes.
Yeah, there are times where, I'm prepping for Strahd. I'm like, man, I wish this was homebrew because I got a great story beat with a character, right? I want to go invest some time in their background, but it's totally going to divert us from that path of continuing the module, finishing the module. I mean, because you can drag these things on as long as you want, and sometimes that's left on the cutting room floor. Like, sorry, player, we don't get to go visit this part of your past because Strahd, and that's where you kind of long for the homebrew a little bit.
Now, I think that you're doing this obviously on stream, and your stream titles are Curse of Strahd. So anybody coming to your channel is expecting to see the module Curse of Strahd. They're going to have some familiarity with some of the locations and things like that. Right. If it's just a homebrew and your players are all on board, like if you're running a module at a home table, do you just say, screw it, go do the other thing, come back later? Like that's what I would do maybe, but
yeah, that's what it feels like you could do.
Yeah, I think totally. And I think you as a DM should be more than willing to do that. Like you're in the middle of Curse of Strahd, screw it, let's go down this path of your backstory and be totally accepting of that. And you're right, because this is a streamed game, because we are looking at, and this is the unfortunate side effect, is it is a product that you're trying to put out there, and we want to do a module review at the end of it, and we want it to be kind of a playthrough or a how-to run Strahd, you have to hit those story beats, and so you are handcuffed a little bit there.
Yeah.
And so but we like the streaming, we like the interacting with the audience, and that's it's kind of, there's a fuel for a fire there that we want to keep burning. So
yeah. And when you're a player in one of those kind of games, as I get to do here a lot, like you're willing to leave a few things behind in the name of going forward and
exactly.
Seeing what's next, So usually your players on a stream, if you prep them well, are usually on board for
right.
That too.
And most streamers gamers that stream are kind of, they know that, right? They're up to speed and they know what to expect, and session 0 is going to pay off a huge amount, by talking about what Strahd is exactly going to be, what this game is going to look like. But I try giving each character, putting some investment in there for each character the best that I can. I think any DM needs to do that. And sometimes you do sacrifice a little of the Strahd story, but at the end of the day, it's our group and we want to have a good time. And as long as you're having a good time, whether you run Strahd 100% straight down the line or you deviate a little bit, as long as you're having a good time, I think that's the rule, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's interesting because
it's the most important thing.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's so much of your job as a DM is about your audience, and usually your audience is the group at the table. But now we're on a stream, you have this extended audience that you now have to take into consideration. So I think that it changes the feel and the flow of things a little bit. I'm finding myself paying a lot of attention to that while I'm running the game on Wednesday nights. And I'm sure Dustin did when he was doing his Zweihander thing.
I don't have a clue what you talk about, Jeff.
He doesn't at all. He just plays how he plays.
There's a live chat.
So I don't know. I find that some of that's it changes the way you think a little bit, you know, and like
Mhm.
where the scope of your game is. And like you were saying, you know, talking about side plots and taking people down a different road. You know, if it's just your player group, you feel like, okay, we're going to explore what you guys want to do, and that's the most important thing we could be doing. When you get on a stream with a live audience, you go, oh, what's the audience looking for? What's in it for their time?
Right.
How do I give both groups what they want? You know,
and two, you're more present in the idea that you got to hit some rising action, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there are times where you're playing and not much is happening, and you look at, this is an unfortunate side effect, but you look at your viewer count and you see it start to dip a little bit, and you're like, oh crap, we need some excitement. Okay, so it's another thing that is just another one of those cogs in the great scheme of things that are working upstairs when you're DMing on a live stream, that you want to make sure you're hitting, because you want to be entertaining, right? Otherwise, why are you doing it? I don't want to be boring on stream. It's you gotta make sure you're hitting those plot points and you have some rising action and some fun stuff going on for the viewers.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot of work to not actually have anyone watching you. So you got the editing later for YouTube. Put a lot of work in it. You want to see some growth there going right. Mm-hmm. Like you got to make sure it's good stuff.
Exactly.
It's a very interesting kind of dynamic. We touch on it every once in a while here on the show, but whenever we have the other streamers on, it comes up quite often. But it is kind of an interesting dynamic because you got to play around with that. How true to your table do you want to be, and how what is your relationship to the game and to the stream itself? And it's different from time to time. What people are feeling and what people are enjoying and what the chat is enjoying, that kind of stuff. And it doesn't seem to be a clear answer of what that should be ever.
Yeah, and I mean sometimes you're gonna piss chat off because you're not gonna go the way they thought you were going to go, or and that's okay because
absolutely,
it's your game and you're gonna do what you want to do.
Agreed. So I know one thing we've kind of talked a little bit about in your guys' Discord while we're on the topic of Strahd, is the element of horror that comes with a Strahd game. And I know me and you had some back and forth about how 5e helps or does not help you with horror. So talk a little about how you're getting the horror feel in Strahd. How are you getting that in there?
Yeah, so that's kind of where I feel like I am dropping the ball a little bit, is implanting enough paranoia and horror elements that my players are kind of on edge and they don't know what they're going to do yet. Like they don't know what's going to come at them. And I think that's just me being, this is a new venture for me as a DM, like running a horror campaign. It's like we're talking about, pacing and hitting those rising actions. You got to kind of figure out how to do that. And I haven't done that yet. So that's kind of, it's like, that's the wheel that's turning in my head, is how am I going to up the ante on the horror side of things and make it worth their while.
So most DMs I've seen. First off, we do need to acknowledge Laugh with Lindy just came in with a rating party of 17. We love you, Lindy.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I announced it at my Discord today. Lindy is going to be one of my players in my upcoming horror in Huttonville.
There you go.
It's a Zweihander game that I'm going to be starting in next month.
Awesome.
Hopefully next month.
Lindy and I are going to be playing together. And
DM Jeff is going to be in it. So it's going to be good. So thank you for the raid, Lindy.
Thank you very much.
As I was about to get back to saying, one of the things as a DM that I've seen, because as you know, I watch a lot of Twitch streams out there, and I bounce around. I see a lot, and some of the ones I've seen do Strahd the best are ones who have really, really come in with the. Once you're able to get to the point in the module where you actually start interacting with Strahd, it's like the scarier you can make Strahd seem, the more that horror starts to really set in. Like that's really where it hits.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't think any of my players are watching, but if they are, just, close your ears. So they've had one encounter with Strahd, and it was right after Death House, and they just had, their asses handed to them in that little mini dungeon that Death House is. And Strahd came up in a carriage, and he was disguised as this big jovial wine merchant. And so they kind of knew it was him, but he was just this kind of over the top funny guy. And it was more because he could, right? Because gonna mess with them that way because he can, and that's the only encounter they've had with him so far. So I think you're right. The next time they're almost done with this little mission they got going, and then the next time Strahd comes in, is he's going to kind of drop the hammer a little bit, and I think that's going to be a big way to kind of up the stakes here. Like, ooh, we can't be messing around. We need to take this seriously, and I think with that kind of tension, the horror and the paranoia is easier to kind of fill the rest of that bucket that you're trying to fill up,
Right.
like, because they know that Strahd is way overpowered compared to where we're at right now, so we better mind our P's and Q's. And so now they got to, tiptoe, walk on those eggshells a little bit.
Now, do you feel like the horror is coming across? Oh, right. Do you feel
time.
like the horror is coming across purely from the power differential, or do you feel like it's more of a subtle thing that comes across, like little elements that kind of tease in?
Yeah. So when you're dealing with Strahd, it's that power differential. It's like, right, I got to be careful. But there are some tropes and some things that are just well established that are out there. The low-lying mist, the werewolves out in the background. Those things kind of help to build that scene a little bit, and it's all kind of working together. So it's not all total just power differential. Mm-hmm. I think if it's just that way, it would get a little stale pretty quick.
Yeah.
So you have these other elements coming in.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really worked with this module or encountered very much of it, so I don't know how it's laid out or what the dynamics are at play. But to me, it always feels like horror is best when the obvious problem isn't the actual thing that's scaring me. It's the unknown of what's around me, like who's working for who, who's paying attention to what are the consequences of what I'm doing that I don't realize is a consequence, but I think it might be, and that kind of paranoia. I don't know how you see that exactly in this particular context, but I know for me, that's what sells the tension.
And I think we're to that point. Like, XP to level 3 did a video on breakdown of Curse of Strahd, that if you're going to run it, I would highly recommend it. It's pretty informative. And he thinks you should actually start the module on the other side of the map, and that's kind of where they're at now. And I could totally see what he was saying there. It's like, the first village, the actual village of Barovia that you're in is relatively low stakes, kind of kind of vanilla. Mm-hmm. But now they're at this other village on the other side of the map that's got a whole lot going for it, and they just got there. So there's tons of story beats that can come in, and different factions and different people with different motivations. Like, it's not just Strahd with his thumb down on everybody now. There are other people that are kind of trying to counteract Strahd and trying to, deceive him. And so there's a lot going on there that I'm excited for them to kind of play around in. And I think that's going to help up the horror kind of element there.
Yeah. Hey, Billy Zed's got himself following us here. Thank you very much. Welcome.
Thanks, Bill.
And I think it's an interesting dynamic at a lot of these, especially ones that intend to start from first level. Because I think the way it's set up is for, if this is your first time gaming, here's a starter safe zone where you just figure out how to roll some dice, and maybe your character has a voice at this point, and then we'll get you to the story. And I'm wondering if maybe that's what's going on with this. Maybe that's
I think
why it feels that way.
There's a definite feeling of that, and good or bad, I don't know. Maybe it's just kind of setting them up with this false hope that then we're going to crush here later on.
I mean, I guess it does give you that nice contrast that you can deal with.
Yeah, and we did run the optional Death House, which is levels 1 to 3. Like, they leave Death House leveling up to 3, so you could start the module at level 3. But I read through Death House and it was too much fun to kind of leave on the tables.
Leviathan's safe zone in Ravenloft. Sure, yeah, that's true. Fair enough.
Yeah, well, it's. People who aren't that familiar with the entire realm of Ravenloft, when they get into Curse of Strahd, a lot of times I don't think they fully realize what they've stepped into. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's where some of the scare comes from, is when they finally start to realize exactly where they are. Like,
yeah, because, I mean, we have a cleric who's praying to her god, and she doesn't know this yet, but it's not actually her god that's answering any of her prayers, because they're on a different plane of existence. That god is nowhere to be seen. This is Strahd's domain, so he's messing with them, and I'm hoping that kind of pays off. Like these little, like I'm hinting at every time the cleric goes through a ritual or, you know, a prayer, there's a little twinge of something different. And I'm hoping that's going to pay off. Like you plant the seeds early and then hopefully it'll pay off later when it's revealed. You know, you reveal that mask and it's like, oh, that was Strahd the whole time. Yeah. So hopefully, you know, those are big climactic moments that I'm hoping we build up to.
Yeah, it's nice when you can look back and see all the little breadcrumbs that led you there. In retrospect, you go, oh, that scene was way different than I thought it was. You know, those are so good. I love when those things happen.
Yeah, those are. It's sometimes some of the hardest things to do as a DM is to put those things out there and then water them and be patient enough to wait for them to grow. Wait for them to grow so that you can harvest them later. Like, it's a hard thing to do.
Well, it's delayed gratification, right? It's something we all struggle with. It's just let it sit. Let it sit. You know, watch that paint dry for a little bit and then come back to it. And yeah, it's a tough one to do. And because players can do anything, you don't know if they're going to come back to that seed you planted, right? It could have been for nothing. And if it is, oh well, you plant a new seed, right? And you keep moving on. But so far, everybody's doing pretty good, and we're having a good time.
Yeah, I think Leviathan's making some good points here, in that, you know, in real life, fear is a pretty natural state. Like, it comes up, you feel it, and it's just there. But in games, it's hard to pull off because there's a disconnect between player and character fear.
Yeah,
you're so disconnected from it, and I think that's why dread, as he's saying, is a little easier to convey than fear.
Yeah, and we've talked about, at least in our Discord chat, we've talked about, you know, the invincibility of PCs and 5e. You know, it's sometimes it's hard to drop that hammer on them, and it's hard to get them fearful of something. And, you know, it's kind of that video game mentality. You know, I'll just start over. You know, I can hit that reset button and go to the save point, whatever. So it's hard. It takes conditioning, and it takes you know, a work on the DM.
Yeah, and the work on the players. I mean, but you have to what I think our I would call it an argument for the sake of one. But what we had the Discord was to talk about it. And I was like, at the end of the day, it's all about DM work and player investment, because 5e mechanically is not doing anything to help you there. Like, it's just not. But it doesn't have good terror rules or, you know, anything involved. So what you have to get with something when you're playing a 5e is you got to get really good player investment. They got to be in. They got to be in the role play. They got to be in the moment and thinking about how scared their character would be, and then it happens to them. And like self-imposed fear. Like, there's not a mechanic that I can always place on you to make you fearful in the game as your player. Right. I'm reading through Call of Cthulhu 7th edition, and there are those mechanics, right? It's like, you give you that sanity roll. Okay, now you are now fearful of your own reflection. You know, so things they are mechanically to get those players role playing those things. Like, that's great. I wish there was a little bit more of that in 5e, or you know, maybe not. Maybe we'll just play Call of Cthulhu. I don't know. But
yeah, I think some of it though is that a lot of times as a player, players don't want to be weak, right? They want their characters to be Joe Smo, that's the coolest dude ever. They want to be James Bond, unfazed by the explosion as I walk away. You know,
and
so like
5e is your system for that.
Yeah, when there's no mechanic saying that you can't just do that by default. Everyone defaults to I'm going to do that, and it takes I think an advanced role player to be like, no, my character should be scared. I'm going to play scared because it makes this scene more interesting. Yeah,
and that's kind of, you know, Call of Cthulhu. Like, your character background could be an accountant, right? Like, who wants to play an accountant, a heroic accountant? You know, it's not something you would see in a Dungeons and Dragons game where everybody does want to be the hero, right? I mean, there's the new mechanic, the Heroic Chronicles. They call it that for a reason, right? It's like, we're going to figure out how to make you heroic, and I think that's great. That's fun, and I enjoy the hell out of 5e. Like, I'm having a good time playing. You know, I'm not going to knock it. It's just, it's different. And when we're trying to create those fear and the dread in Strahd, that's kind of where the rub is, I guess. You know, where it's just putting a little more work on the players and the DM, which is fine, and we're making the best out of it and having a great time. So I can't complain. But
the best Ravenloft game session I ever played in, and now when I played Ravenloft, And when I got to confront Strahd, it was in second ed. There were no modules, and a friend of mine decided to run it. And we were over at his house, and we played by candlelight with all the lights out during the middle of a thunderstorm. And once you're in that setting, now all of a sudden it didn't matter what we were doing. Everything had it was a little spookier than it was before. Now you can't do that on stream, obviously.
There you go.
That was when Ravenloft was at its best.
There are elements that can help that, like using a Sirenscape or something else, kind of pumping in some of those elements, that kind of helps prime the pump, and get you going. But that is great. That's a great experience. I would love to have that, sitting in a basement, candlelight storm, and yeah, that's fun. It
was a fun night. You were there for that, weren't you, Jeff?
I'm trying to remember.
At Mikey's house?
It seems vaguely familiar, but I don't know if I was there.
Second edition.
Enough.
So long ago.
Yes, I know. It's so long ago.
I feel like dinosaurs.
Sometimes, yep. Now, so we've talked a bit about the horror with Strahd, everything that you're working with. One of the other things we really wanted to kind of hit upon, because it's something you guys did go through, and we want to talk a little bit about your guys' rebranding that you did and the effects you saw from all this. Now, when we had Billy Zed there, Bob, when he was on the show last year, I think I was like September, maybe August, somewhere in there.
Yeah, it's been a while.
You guys were still at the time Dadboard D&D.
Yeah.
Which
and relatively new. So going back to when we started Tomb of Annihilation, we didn't actually stream session 1 of Tomb of Annihilation. We were like 10 sessions in, and we were like, wow, we're having fun. We've kind of altered some of the rules, and we think we like what we're putting out there. You always think your game is the greatest, and then you record it and look back and you're like, oh geez. But we thought, it's like, yeah, this is really good. Let's start streaming it. Bob had the channel Billy Zed at the time, and he was doing let's plays and stuff like that. And we were like, okay, he's got a little following. We'll just hop in there. And so we started streaming Tomb of Annihilation, and we're like, okay. So we played under the Billy Zed moniker for a while. And we're like, okay, what do we want to call ourselves? And it was just a bunch of dudes, and most of us were dads, so we're like, dad bods are cool. It's kind of the hip thing. I don't have to work out if I. So we're like, dad bod D&D. We like the alliteration. The 3 letters all together. It looked nice, sounded nice, so we went with that, and we rolled with that for a while. And I think, you get a certain clientele with that kind of name, and it's not totally becoming of the community that is tabletop role players. Nothing wrong with old white guys, right, playing the game, but that was the strict clientele that was coming in, and it was cool, and we had fun, and we kind of rode that a little bit, and got some stuff happened where we started bringing people in, and they weren't, like, when we looked at the people, they weren't represented with the name Dad Bod. So we thought we wanted to change that to kind of be more encompassing of who we were sharing tables with, because we kind of branched out, and I think we'll get into this later with the community one shots. We were still Dad Bod when we started those, and we were bringing people into those games, and Dad Bod didn't represent them, so we wanted to change, and it was a universal decision with everybody on the team to change it to something else, and we settled on Featherfall Tabletop. It's kind of, I can't remember what the final decision was to why that, but we liked it. Again, you have the alliteration, Featherfall Tabletop. It looks good. You could do a lot logo wise with it.
It's a soft transition.
And we thought, it's welcoming and more representative of who we're sharing the table with. So we transitioned over to that, and it was, I tell you, it's hard to rebrand, especially when you're a bunch of just regular Joes with no capital to kind of put towards a rebranding. And you want to set a standard, and you want to look professional as possible. It was difficult, and it took a lot of work behind the scenes to make that happen. And even just as much as like having a Gmail account that's Dadbod D&D connected to your YouTube, which you already got subscribers for, and like to start over is hard. So we still have some remnants of Dad Bod D&D. Like the Dad Bod Gmail is still the main one that we use, but it was just difficult. But I think we handled it pretty well. We had some art commissioned for the first time, and we kind of timed it all as much as we could to have everything release at once. So like this big kind of push, like it's like overnight we're no longer Dad Bod. It's all Featherfall Tabletop, and it all kind of happened at once. Like rip the Band-Aid off and just do it. And I mean, I can say I think we pissed off a few people that were kind of regulars with that change, and with that, I'm sorry, we're still the same people creating the content. It's just a different name. But the positive of that is we welcomed so many more people, and I think that was the best part of it. Like I individually identify with Dad Bod more, but being under the Featherfall name, it's like I get to share the table with so many more people. That is awesome. And I think that's kind of the high we're riding right now is all these different people coming in and we're playing these games with, and I don't think it would be the same if we stayed at Dad Bod D&D.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
I think your community building, you might have continued on that either way, and you would have gotten more people in there because of it. But I can say that just from a pure diversity standpoint, your Discord is probably one of the best examples of diversity of the 30-some Discords I'm in. As far as like when I go in there, I can see who I know some of them because I get to see them in your games, the one-shot stuff you do. So I mean, I eventually get to realize who some of them are. Like and that didn't happen exactly overnight, but that rebrand definitely was a turning point for what your guys' Discord community really looked like.
Yeah, and it was kind of one of the prerequisites to playing the community one-shots is you had to be in the Discord. And again, that adds to the diversity that gets a lot more people sharing a space together and, working through opinions and, having conversations. And I think having positive discourse on the internet is something that doesn't happen all the time. So if you have your own little corner of the internet where you're doing that with a bunch of different people, I think you got something good there.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I think changing to Featherfall kind of helped push that forward at a greater pace than what we were ready for. And I'm not saying like we're this huge channel or anything, but for the amount of people that we have running the thing, it's like, yeah, there's a lot of moving parts here, and it gets you got a lot of plates in the air sometimes.
You guys didn't just rebrand. I mean, you came out with a whole slate of shows. Like you went to like almost 6 nights a week, I think, there for a bit.
Yeah, that was our idea. Was we wanted. We had the main show, we can call it that, was the one that Bob was DMing, and it was Tomb of Annihilation at the time and transferred into Waterdeep. That was the one stream, and then we were doing we called it the podcast. We were doing just kind of a talk show, kind of like what we're doing right here on a Thursday, and then we were like, okay, what can we add in there? And we wanted another stream, and because ours was a bunch of dudes, we're like, well, let's try to get let's have that diversity represented. And so we went out and put some people together that played in some of those one shots and got them in a group, and they were streaming on Tuesday nights as The Gods We Know. Just jumping ahead here, they have now moved out of our channel and started their own. You can check them out at Friends Who Roll Dice on Twitch and Twitter. They got a couple shows going on over there, but so they've kind of moved on to their own thing. But that was like the start of just kind of opening it up and really just being this all-inclusive kind of thing, as much as we wanted, or as much as we could make it that way. So we had that going on, and at the same time, our community one-shots were really picking up. And
yeah, they were.
Those were really good.
Yeah. I'm going to say this right at the start. Those are a pain in the butt to put together.
I can imagine. Yeah.
I can imagine the night moving trying to get them booked and everything.
Because
technology.
So you gotta have the guy streaming it, and Bob runs all the streams. So thank you for that. You got to have the guy streaming it. You got to have a DM. You got to have 4 players. You got to have a backup player in case one player is going to drop out or has, something comes up and can't make it. That's a lot of moving parts. And then you got to give them the rundown. So I'll say you guys did a great job of, as soon as I came into the chat tonight, of like, okay, here's what you do. All right, we're set up, move on. Right. And that's a practice that comes out. And so we've kind of got that down now, but at the start, it was rough. 4 to 5 strangers coming into a table at once.
At once,
they have
that's the problem.
They have a lot of questions, and we spent a lot of time creating a document. We call it our memorandum of understanding, and it's there to alleviate 90% of those questions and get you into the questions that matter for the game. Building your characters and building the world and what the game is going to look like. And so we put in a lot of effort there in creating those documents.
Yeah. To
help alleviate some of those questions. And it's a lot of work. It's, we were doing these every other week on a Monday, and even just, 2 a month. It's, we talked about like, let's go every Monday. I was like, okay, that's great in theory, but that's 2 more shows we got to edit. That's 2 more shows we got to fill that, and I think we could, like, the community is so great that they're chomping at the bit to play in games that, we definitely can fill those games. But for sure. I'm running ragged over here, trying to get them all scheduled and organized. And again, like I said earlier, we want to set a standard, and we want to get everything we stream up to that standard. And sometimes that's hard when you're doing these community one shots. But again, a huge shout out to everybody that's played in them. I'm so happy to have them in those games, and we've created some great moments, and they've definitely raised that bar for us, and we're really appreciative of them for that.
Yeah, I mean, that's something we've kind of looked at with your channel and some others that I'm kind of envious of. Not kind of, I am envious of. I think it's a beautiful thing you guys have created. You're very welcome. And like, I think that chance to kind of roll your community back into your production, have somebody that's just, hanging out in your audience usually is now able to actually participate and to inject something into it, to see themselves reflected there in the scenes. I think that adds a lot, and it's something we talked about on our team, like whether or not we wanted to go this route, whether we want to add more interaction, bring more people on to different shows. But some of these same things you're describing keep coming up, like when you're talking about production quality, do you have a minimum level of technology that people have to have? Scheduling is already difficult with ourselves. Now we add in other people. Obviously, that's another issue.
Yeah.
There's so many things that can come up that I'm kind of wondering. Do you have those kind of minimums that you're kind of?
So in our memorandum, it does kind of lay out like, hey, here's baseline, what you need. You got to have a mic. Cam is optional, but we always like to see people's faces and get those interactions and being able to emote a little bit better. But cam is not required. So, I mean, the technology is pretty low level for people who spend time on a computer and the internet that would have access to us. So yeah, there is an initial hurdle to get into the game. And really what these have done for us is we've seen some awesome role players come in, and we've seen some people that were like, man, let's get this person into a game. We need more games with this person, because it was just a blast. And I mean, I've shared the table now with so many people. It just blows my mind if I look back at all the different people I've played games with. It's like, it's crazy. It's sorry, I'm getting off.
That's just perfect.
And a lot of your one shots, you're getting your material from like DM's Guild, places where you're able to find what's essentially put together one-shot games that you're getting to run, right?
Yeah, again, so, I mean, there's a motive behind that, because if we buy something off of DM's Guild or we're gifted something one-shot to run, we get to create a review of that, right? So in our little talk show that we do, not so regularly now, but we get to interact with that module and talk about it, the pros and the cons, and kind of break it down. And again, it's now a resource that's out there for somebody else who might want to run it. Not that our opinions are the end all be all, but it's out there, and more opinions sometimes are better than none. But yeah, we've been in talks with like Arcane Library. We bought their horror bundle. Speaking of horror, and if you haven't run an Arcane Library one shot, I would definitely recommend it. It's so DM friendly. They're just great. They're so much fun to run.
Nice.
And they're just a blast. And we were actually, a couple weeks ago, we had the creator of those, Kelsey, in a one shot. So we actually got to play in a game with the creator of all those. And I think that those are fulfilling moments for me, and just being kind of a content creator is getting to play those games with other content creators. It's so much fun.
Now, a little fun fact: your first guest DM, one shots.
This guy right here.
Yeah. I was the first guest DM on your one shots, and I didn't give you the luxury of some really cool handwritten module that you could review afterwards. I did my own thing because that's how I do. It was a whole lot of fun getting to do that also, by the way. So I'm chomping at the bit to get a chance to get back in there either as a player or a DM again. So
So these one shots started out with kind of like, we wanted a little bit of control on them. So it was people in our kind of leadership or our staff, if we want to call it that were DMing the one shots, just because it could be scary throwing a bunch of people together and then going out and say, hey, go play.
Yeah, good luck.
And stream it
go play under our name
and represent
our
us.
name. Yeah. Right? I have no idea what you're going to say, but go ahead. Like that could be scary. So we kind of handled it with kids' gloves a little bit, and we manned all the. We ran all the games, and we did open it up. Dustin, you were definitely a known commodity, and we're like, yeah, heck yeah, come in and run this game. But we've actually had a few others that have come in and run games because, one, they played, and kind of the prerequisite was that they played in a game with us, so we kind of know what we're getting into. Because there's some toxic people out there that run weird games and do weird things in games, and we don't want that on our channel, right? We want to be inclusive and have everybody have a good time. So we've kind of opened that up and let some guest DMs come in, and those are always the greatest games, because again, I'm getting to see somebody else's DM style, because I sit at the editing bay and I'm watching the whole game, right? And I'm picking up little beats and little cues, and I'm like, okay, put that in my toolbox. So it's great. And I mean, I will share a moment that we had that's probably like my favorite community one-shot moment. We were playing Guns of Santa Terina, which is a system created by PG Harrington, Frontier Games over in the UK. He actually ran the game for us, which is pretty awesome. And it's a 2D6 system, super easy to pick up and play. Again, check it out on DM's Guild if you'd be down. But it's Western themed, and he's running it, and we're playing with Draco's in there. And I think he was relatively new to role playing game. And before off stream, he's like, "Yeah, usually all my characters go to the comedic side, but I'm going to try to be this guy's a little more serious." And we're halfway through the game, and he's in this moment where it's like he has to take that leap of faith, or he's going to fall back into being the comedic character that he always is. And we're sitting there, and it's almost going back to when Tomb of Annihilation kind of helped me. Like, I was like, okay, now it's time to pass the torch, right? So I and the other players are helping usher him into that moment, and you saw it click with him, and it was a great moment for him. And I was so happy I got to share it, that he was just able to go to that serious side and role play, and not fall on tendencies that he had built, and just kind of like opened up the barriers, right? And now he's got a new tool in his toolbox. He can go there. It was just, and if we weren't running these games, I wouldn't have been able to share that moment with him, and it was amazing. It was tons of fun.
It's really cool seeing somebody do something different. Somebody picking up a character voice for the first time, or playing completely against type. Somebody going over a class that they normally wouldn't play or whatever. And seeing them actually thrive in those environments. Yeah. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, and those are the moments that I look forward now. Like I want those to happen. I need more of those. I haven't been playing very long, but at a certain point you start to see the same thing over and over again. And you're like, okay, what's the new thing? Okay, great, here it is. I'm in this game with it. Let's go with it. It's fun.
Yeah, seeing new players come in the scene, I think that's one of the things I really enjoy a lot. Seeing those like timid first steps and what they gravitate towards, what they find is cool, and then all of a sudden there's that eureka aha moment that happens.
Yeah.
And there it is. Yes.
It's so great, and sharing those moments with them, it's awesome. It's like, you're reliving some of those moments that you had, like, vicariously through them, and it's a great feeling.
Oh, show.
So, talking a little about your one shots in your community, you were kind of talking how you're moving into sort of like a phase 3 of this.
Yeah.
Tell us a little about what we can expect in the future from Featherfall Tabletop.
Yeah, perfect. So we've kind of had 2 iterations of these community one-shots. One was definitely under the Dad Bod banner, where it was mostly in-house playing in those games. And then 2, where we were full Featherfall, and it was wide open to the community, and we had, everything that we just shared. And now we're kind of like third phase. Like, how are we going to reinvent this and do something a little different? And I think what it's kind of, we haven't ironed out all the details yet. But what we're going to try to do is step away from 5e a little bit and go to some of these other, not smaller systems, but just different systems that maybe aren't, when you look on YouTube or you try to find a live stream, you don't find a whole lot. You see a whole lot in that Dungeons and Dragons category, but not a whole lot anywhere else. So we want to kind of open it up and kind of open eyes to these other systems. So they're going to be, we're kind of leaning towards these spotlight months where we'll have a couple games run in a particular system for the entire month, and the idea is that we put together a how-to video on whatever system. So I'll use Call of Cthulhu as an example, because that's what I'm reading through right now, is how do you create a character? How do you do combat? How do you, do skill checks and the like, whatever it is. We want to be an option for people a resource. That's the word. We want to be a resource for people to come to and go, okay, and have a good set of videos that people could come in and say, okay, here's how you play Call of Cthulhu. And also create fun experiences in a new system for some other people. Right. So that's kind of where we're at. And there's a whole list of systems that we've got already, and I'm sure a whole bunch more are going to come our way. I wish I had more time, because it's like almost a glutton for punishment, man. Because like trying to figure out a new system, DM it, teach all the players how to do it. It's like, man, you're just putting more and more on your shoulders. But again, those moments where those aha moments, like I want more of those, and I think that's the drug that's fueling me right now. Is like I want to help create those aha moments for people, and also I want to show some love to these other systems that are out there. I mean, people put a lot of work and effort into creating those. Let's get them some playthroughs. I'll do my part and the best I can to get those out there. So that's kind of where season 3 of community one shots are going. We don't have any opens yet. We're still kind of ironing out some of those, like what system do we want to start with. But that's where we're going.
Nice. And I think that's something valuable as a player and as a DM too, is to get a chance to play in different systems, figure out what works for you and what doesn't, what some systems do better than others, different, particular niches. And, seeing just how that works, like what is it that's under the hood of all these things that is creating an experience that is unique to that session. You don't necessarily get the same experience out of different games. And, like we've been talking about horror, obviously. It's been one of the things we keep coming back to. And like you said, 5e doesn't do horror in the same way that Call of Cthulhu does. And
right. Yeah, there are mechanics to help
that's right.
kind of push that in your face. Yeah. And, before I started really branching out and reading different.
Uh-oh, did Discord freeze on me?
You froze. No, okay. You're moving again.
Woo!
You're moving again. It was just a momentary freeze. Sorry, Chris, carry on there. We thought we were having a technical difficulty for a moment.
We're doing it live. So there's this level of ignorance that I had where I was like, I don't know how you could make a different system. Like, I don't know how you could play in anything else. Like, just the concept of a different way to roll dice wasn't there. And so I started reading through different, systems and such. It's like, oh yeah, like there's so many different ways that you can go, and it's kind of eye-opening. And I'd like to do my part in helping, lift the veil for other people, and try to, there are other ways to play, mechanically speaking.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I reference Whitehander a lot because I run a lot as Whitehander, but like it does things like social intrigue, conspiracy rules, chase scenes.
Yeah,
chase scene in 5e, everybody moves 30 feet around. Like,
right. Yeah,
there's just little things like that you can get in other systems. That when you go back to 5e, you're like, well, okay, I can't really do that scene justice in 5e, but 5e does so many other things I can't do in this other system. Also, like it's a give and take. But to me, then I always say, like, when I'm writing my homebrew world or my homebrew stories, like I start thinking to myself, like, what system is going to fit what I want to do the best?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, Cthulhu, I mean, there are chase mechanics.
Yes.
Right. So you could definitely put that in your game. Going back to Waterdeep, there was a chase scene on a roof, and it's a little clunky. Right. You kind of gotta drop some things, and you got to go rule cool, and you got to kind of let it just go with what it is. And where Cthulhu, you got mechanics that kind of keep you within the bounds and keeps you moving forward. Right or wrong, I don't know which one you're going to choose, but 5e, you got to kind of you got to drop some stuff, and you got to let loose a little bit.
Yeah, it's what fits your table, obviously, is what we keep coming back to, right? So if you got a system that works really well for the content you want to create, but it doesn't match your table, that's not going to work. Yeah. And vice versa. Yeah. So there is kind of a plug and play kind of element, but there's also this other component that you got to pay attention to.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because I think of things like, what if I wanted to run like an alien game? Like you're on the Nostromo. Okay, let's do this in 5e. That's not going to play well. Now, Aliens, maybe, because it's more of an action game, right?
Right. So, the Alien system is so good, though.
Yeah. I haven't checked it out, but it's definitely
so good.
On my short list. Yeah.
Sorry, Jeff. Go on. I had to throw a plug. I think it's so good.
Like, I kind of want to look at that too. It's but it's fascinating. We talk about this a lot. Just things as simple as health mechanics. Like how do you deal with that? Like if you look at something like World of Darkness, where you got 7 health levels and that's it.
That's it. You're dead.
Get a shot, you might die. In like just one go. Maybe there's some ways you can counter that a little bit, but everything is scary. You get into some D&D games, or like historically any D&D game after level 1, you're like, nah. I can get stabbed with a great sword. It'll be fine. He's got to hit me at least 12 times, and I'll be still standing here. So like the
Say the dying.
So
you get 6 rounds of rolls maybe before you're really dead now. Like,
yeah. But again, like you're creating a different game, and you're playing a different game. If that's not what you like, man, there's tons of stuff out there. Go find it, Yeah. 5e does so many things great and that are entertaining and fun, and obviously, I mean, they're they're everywhere. So it has some things that it does really really great, and again, it's where I kind of cut my teeth. So I owe a lot to them. But now it's to the point where, like in my playing lifespan, that it's time to branch out and see what else is out there.
And that's an interesting thing too. It's because people. It's like you're not abandoning 5e.
No.
Like you can go play another game, do a horror game, then go do another game where it's got a different feel to it, a space game. And then you know what? After you've done those 2 games, you're like, you know what? I'm ready to be an epic hero again.
Yeah.
Come back home to 5e, do it again, like.
And I think there's this feeling personally where a mastery of a subject, where it's like, okay, 5e, I got figured out. I could run a game of 5e anytime, anywhere, without a rule book, and it would be fine. And again, that kind of gets stale. So it's like, okay, now let's figure out some new things. I have some room to learn a new system, and I don't know, I'm happy that I'm at that place in my role playing life that I have room and the ability to go learn and play in a new system.
Yeah, because it's not like a big fish in a small pond thing. I mean, when you're playing 5e, you're already in the largest ocean on the planet. You're in the Pacific. But what you learn is there's like 6 other oceans out there you can go play in that are not as big as the Pacific, but they are in the right oceans to play in. So it's there's a lot out there to experience and try. And yeah, it's definitely definitely something you can bring to your channel and obviously give other people that experience to come along with you the way you're putting your one shots together. So
and like you've been saying,
definitely.
you pick up new skills because every game you run in a different system brings you new abilities and new challenges, and then when you come back to your other games, you go, hey, remember this? This should pull out this tool. You haven't been doing this here. Let's see how that plays.
Exactly.
And you get to spruce it up.
I mean, reading through Cthulhu and running Strahd, it's like, all right, there's going to be a whole lot more, wisdom saves, and we're going to see how you're dealing with some of the things that you see here in Barovia, and going to be putting some more things on them that are going to be kind of counterproductive, and because I'm the DM, I have that power, and it's not going to be like character breaking or totally debilitating, but it's going to hopefully to add flavor and fun and up that paranoia, fear, dread, horror level that we're kind of going for. And I wouldn't have known that if I didn't read through Call of Cthulhu. If I didn't look into a new system, I wouldn't know that, wow, you can really do that, and it's okay. It's okay to put that mechanic upon a player. It's not rules as written in Strahd, but what the hell?
If the players are down and they enjoy it, I mean, you can always borrow a little bit. Like, there's nothing wrong with that, unless you're in a tournament setting like we were.
Right, exactly.
You can't borrow nothing, but you don't have to worry about that with 5e. I don't think there's any 5e tournaments out there, but you get a real super competitive level, like it's another story.
So that's what keeps it fresh, right? When you throw that curveball at them, it's like, whoa, I didn't see that coming. All right, I'm in it. I'll go with you. And that's fun. That keeps life at the table. That keeps things exciting and kind of keeps the players themselves like on edge a little bit. And I think that having a player on edge makes it so much easier to put their character on edge because they're embodying that and they're feeling it and acting in a way, I guess.
Absolutely. I get. Yeah. I mean, that was the transition we had. We go back to the LARP example a lot here, but once you start embodying your character physically, acting, using the voice, wearing the costume, suddenly when things were happening, you felt it. At least I did. I don't know if that's universal for LARPers, but the scenes took on a whole different dimension at that point.
Yeah, I don't know how many. I don't know if you guys can say this. Maybe you have, but I've cried on stream in a character. Right, we were in Tomb of Annihilation, and somebody died. Like, me personally had tears coming down my eyes because I was living in that moment, and it was right place, right time, perfect setting, and the right amount of nurturing that allowed me to kind of take that leap of faith, that step, and I'm gonna be vulnerable here. And it was one of those, another great moment.
That's awesome. Like,
it's just the embodiment.
It was more likely in LARP for me.
Yeah, LARP.
There's not a lot of situations in a table setting where I think I've ever hit that level of emotion, but there was a couple times at LARP because characters were so long lived and your interactions with these people were gone on for so long that, like, when one of those characters died, like, the players were upset. We had to go buy drinks after the game. Yeah. Like, it was people were super emotionally attached to their characters in that setting. So it became far more tragic. And I don't always feel like I get that in the table as much.
Yeah. It's definitely few and far between. Like, is that one moment, never happened again, but right place, right time kind of thing.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like, I there have definitely been some scenes that have hit me pretty heavy. But it seems like, for me at least, when you're at the table, it's hard to get that connected. Like, there's some level of abstraction still there.
Yeah.
Present in a LARP.
Well, and in this case, it was the end of a arc, right? It was the climax of this point where it just happened, and it was, I say it again, right place, right time, and it's never happened since. But it was another one of those moments for me where it's like, okay, this is what this game can bring. Yeah, and it was a cathartic experience. There was emotions afterwards and during, and holy crap, and that happened, and
some pretty tremendous scenes when those happen.
I think we recently put some of our viewers in tears when poor Does bit it. and Levi did a great job with that scene. But it was like very unexpected. Everything was happy-go-lucky, and all of a sudden, poof.
Bam. Yeah.
One NPC's gone, and everyone in the chat was like, "No, not Duz," and we're like, "Wait, what just happened to Duz?"
And those are great moments. And like, I know we're trying to like cross the line between real life and make believe here, but I mean, when people like lose a life and the DM treats it with the right amount of care, and it's somebody that, you know, the players have cared for and the viewers have cared for, those moments are special. I mean, it's a reason why people cry during movies, right? Is because you've lived this life watching these characters go, and then all of a sudden they're not there. It's like, oh man, that hurts. Like, and I'm okay living those moments because I know it's make believe, but it gives me those feelings and those emotions that, you know, I get to work through those.
That's where, when you talk about like TVs or movies, that's where, like, when you think of like Boromir in the Fellowship of the Ring, he wasn't even that likable of a character until he makes that sacrifice and he goes down the way he goes down. Like, you think of like Game of Thrones. Like you had to get emotionally invested in those characters so that when they bit it, then it was like, oh no, not that guy. Like, you know, oh, not her. Like,
you never knew when it was going to happen.
Yeah, you never knew it was going to happen. So, you know, it's an interesting thing because, like, that's where for me, it's sometimes a harder thing to do with NPCs. If a player character dies, it's a little more likely, but it's harder to do, in my opinion, sometimes with NPCs.
Yeah. So I here plug for our game on Wednesday. We have a brand new Wildmount campaign starting session 1 on Wednesday. Awesome. I'm so jacked to be in a PC role. I have a hard time building those connections with NPCs as the DM. Like I don't, because you have so much going on. It's like I don't have time to invest and care about this person so much. Hopefully the players are, but I don't, and I'm ready to be emotionally invested in a character again. You know, I'm ready to get back in the dating scene, kind of thing. You know, it's like I've been thinking of this character for a while, and I'm so ready to step into those shoes again, and because I haven't had one since Waterdeep, and Waterdeep's been a while. Like, you know, it's time, and finally Wednesday, it's happening.
Can we get a little spoiler? What are you playing?
Oh, all right. So yeah, we're in Wildmount. So I'm playing the Chronergy wizard. I had to play one of the new subclasses. I'm playing a human variant. Not stepping outside of, you know, race wise, sticking with the human. But yeah, wizard. So this will be the first time playing a wizard. He's a couple things I tried to do different with this character. He's old. I mean, well, oldish. I mean, he's 49 years old. But it's like, I want to celebrate a birthday as a character, and I want to celebrate a big one. So let's go 50. Like, so sometime in this campaign, he's going to have his 50th birthday, and we're gonna play through that. And I haven't done that yet, so I can check that off of my role playing bucket list of playing through a birthday party and quite a big one at 50. He's got some bones to pick with Asmodeus, and he's kind of on a mission to go find him. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes.
What could possibly go wrong with that?
Yeah, exactly. Like the Lord of the Nine Hells, nothing.
Nah, that'll be easy.
But this is, I kind of wanted to play somebody a little more closer to who I am. So he's kind of like the jovial kind of dad, like loving kind of guy. My last character in Waterdeep was an asshole, and that was hard to play for session after session. You know, being somebody who's so far away from what I am in certain aspects. So, but I'm ready. I'm ready to get this going.
I can totally relate.
Angles.
Yeah. I've heard stories of ball runs.
My character might be a bit of an asshole, but it's not as much of a stretch for me as it is for you.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to go different on a different type, and then this next character for your Shadowrun game, right back at it again.
It's like a one shot.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, all right. Here it is again.
I'm waiting for a little longer campaign to bring back one of the good guys or something. So it'll happen down the road.
Yeah,
that's pretty funny. But it is interesting though. We were talking a bit about how things you need to be in the right place at the right time. Coincidences, scenes have to build towards each other, moments have to be there, and then people have to step into those moments at the right time.
Yeah.
And I guess that kind of brings us into an interesting topic that you guys had promised to want to get into, about dice fudging. and for me, this is where, dice and these sorts of encounters can make or break the situation. And I know there's an argument to be said that don't roll a die unless you want to listen to it in this case. Yeah. But I think there's a place as a DM that if you sense something is big and that there's a major thing that can come down to it, how do you handle it? Do you deal with it in front of the players with a die rolling on the table? Do you not roll at all? Do you throw it behind the counter and say, okay, let's see how it plays out, and then maybe we tweak it a little bit to fit the scene? Where do you live on that? Yeah,
so in my home game, not streamed, I roll behind a screen. Mm-hmm. And yeah, there's some role fudging that happens, and it's almost always in the favor of the player. I very rarely, I can think of one time specifically where I fudged it in my favor, and not particularly proud of that moment. So it just doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. But I've gotten to the point where I've been burned too many times by putting an achievement behind a dice roll, like a story beat, or moving forward, pushing the narrative forward behind a dice roll, and it fails. And you feel like a doofus, and you're like, okay, now I have to do a whole bunch of MacGyvering to make it work. And it's like, I just rather not do that at this point, being confident enough that I just give you that information, just give you that, you're gonna leap across this pit here because I need you over there. And not everything needs to be a skill check. And I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but again, going back to Cthulhu, and some of their skills, like whether you put any points into it, you already have a 20% chance, because driving automobiles, for example, it's just assumed that most people can drive a car from here to there. Mm-hmm. So you get a free 20% to your skill. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of like, okay, I'm not going to make you do a skill check to go to the grocery store or to, go get on the freeway and drive around. Right. I was like, let's just skip past that. I don't need you to get in a car wreck at this point in the game.
Yeah.
And I think that could transfer over into D&D for sure.
Now, for me, I know it's always a matter of, I want to keep the dice reserved for when there's drama. Mm-hmm. And that's what it is to me. Mundane stuff does not need a dice roll.
Yeah. Right.
There's a lot of good workarounds for that. And I think that eliminating unnecessary dice rolls is the first step to getting away from realizing that maybe you don't need to fudge your dice at all. So for me, the most classic one I like to use when I talk about this is the perception check. Walk into the room, everyone roll perception. No. Stop it. If you need them to see something that badly, just pick the guy with the best perception and let him see the damn thing. Reward him for how he built his sheet, but give the guy who's the best at it the chance to be it. That's his thing. Let him do it.
And that's why passive perception is a stat in the game. Is and you're the DM, make the DC to meet his passive perception, so you don't have to roll that. And I do like giving them enough information, but there's always something deeper.
Yeah, something
if you really want to, deep dive, investigate this room, okay, I'm going to give you something because you're going through the effort. I'll put that behind a dice roll, but stuff that I need you to see and need you to have to move the story along, a guy with the highest passive perception, you're going to get it.
Exactly, and that's something we've seen a lot of trouble with in modules of the olden days that they've seemed to have been learning from time. But a lot of new DMs, a lot of modules that I've seen, they lock everything behind gates, and then you get stuck. People fail their rolls, and then you have to, like you said, work around it, and then it's just bad design. Obviously you want to make sure that the path forward is greased and easy, but that the rolls come in to add complication or to remove a complication. And I think that's a valuable thing. Now, what I'm kind of getting more at when I think of dice fudging and times I've done it is, say, when I'm in a fight scene or something, and my big bad's doing his thing, and it's the players are going toe to toe. One guy goes down, the other guy gets up, and he's doing his triumphant moment, and he's getting in a good position, and he whiffs, and it's like bad situation. Okay, now my bad guy goes, and he's throwing down some blows, and it's getting scary. It's on the ropes. The tension's really high. Oh my god! And then the player hits him, and he crits him. He does a crazy amount of damage, and my guy's got 2 hit points left. Is it cooler to say he just takes the hit, gets bloodied up, and he's still standing there? Or is it cooler to give it to him? They don't know how many hit points this guy has, right? I'm going to let that guy die right there. That was your moment. You pulled it out in the fire. It's time to go. Check it out how awesome that ending is. Or if I crit somebody like 6 times in a row, I'm going to be like, well, I wasn't a crit this time. It was just a regular hit,
Yeah, and I think that's where, if it's going to help heighten the drama, I can totally see it happening. But like Dustin said, removing some of those roles that aren't necessary eliminated most of the fudging that ever needs to take place.
Yeah.
And so now it's just like few and far between. I'm not totally against it, in key moments maybe, but just eliminating those unnecessary roles have done wonders in taking, me having to put on a poker face and tell them they passed the DC when they really didn't even need to roll for it.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer, and I approach almost all of my games with this concept, and some more of the newer games actually list this for a lot of the skills and things that you do now. But anytime you throw a die or you call for a die roll as a DM, you have to be prepared for 4 outcomes.
Yeah.
You have to be prepared for critical success, fail, and critical fail. And if you can't live with all 4 of those options, don't ask for a die roll. You're not helping yourself out if you can't deal with those 4 outcomes.
Yeah, I think that's a good way. That's a good way to live. It's a good way to be.
Well, I think some of it too is about how you deal with failure. If failure in your game leads to a bad experience for the player, that it's not fun, then it's more problematic. But if you are the type of DM who can create an enjoyable experience out of failure, letting somebody have a moment that gives them a chance to develop their character or sets them up for some kind of event later on, I think that goes a long way, because then it softens these experiences. People are more willing to take chances, and as a DM, you can allow them to be in situations where the dice can tumble in a bad way and it's still cool.
Yeah, I think early I was afraid to tell the player no.
Yeah.
And that's why I would fudge the roll in their favor. Like I wanted to be the yes man. I wanted to be the forgiving DM and let them succeed all the time. But some of the best moments are when you fail and how you come back from that failure.
Absolutely.
And it took me a while to learn that. And with that, those fudging towards success has kind of gone away. It's like, no, let's let you fail here, and let's see you test your role-playing ability and how your character would react to this failure, and then you're going to be more invested. You're gonna have a better time, because now you're creating the story of overcoming the failure. And I think those are the best stories. Those are the ones we want to read and want to witness, or the overcoming the adversity, even no matter how small it is. It's like. Yeah.
I think back at some of our games we played in the past. Like Dustin ran a game where we were all playing kids at a summer camp that were supernaturals.
That was fantastic for about 3 games.
It was amazing for those 3 games. But I was playing this completely like insecure, like nervous, stuttering kid that was afraid of everything, and I had a blast playing this character because like unlike every other scene you do where you're just like I just go and do it, like I'm dealing with every moment as being like the worst thing this kid's ever gone through, and that moment where he pulls something off and actually goes against and like makes enough rolls to pass his motivations and whatnot, that he comes through, it was really rewarding. But up till that point, it was just failure, but it was in keeping with the character. And I think that was a nice turning point as a player, as I got the chance to say, like, this is really fun failing. This is fun not being the badass. I enjoy this a lot. And
I try. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I try to. Most of my characters have some sort of fatal flaw or some sort of shortcoming that is definitely going to come up in game and create a failure, like a ready-made failure. Like I like those moments. Like you said, I want to spend a lot of the time failing, because then when that success does come, it's awesome. It's a great feeling. It's like, yes, I finally made it. This roll finally worked in my favor. You know, the odds were so far against me, and it finally worked. Mm-hmm. And those are fun characters for me.
And there's other systems, as you start to delve into new systems, you're going to find this too. And I'm not positive with Call of Cthulhu, but they have a lot of fail forward mechanics.
Yeah, I like those ideas.
And there's this new kind of wave in a lot of these newer games where sometimes when you do fail a roll, it doesn't stop you from doing what you're doing, but it makes the next roll harder, or it has some other sub mechanic kicks in that's like, okay, because you failed this roll, this changes a little bit in what's going to happen next. So like it doesn't stop that progress. You're not locking things behind a die roll, but even if you're asking for die rolls at the time, you're doing it causing a different level of setback.
Yeah, in Cthulhu you could push your roll, and it's basically giving yourself advantage. But if you fail that second roll, the DM or the keeper in this case has like they could throw a lot of stuff at you. You know, it's risking and rolling the dice and figuring out what you want. Kids on Bikes is a system where it's got different levels of failure depending on how bad you failed. You can still kind of succeed if you just barely failed, but something bad's going to happen. If you totally failed, it's even worse, you know, and different levels of success too. And they've done a good job of giving a nice table of information on what would be in each kind of success or failure category.
Yeah, reasonable.
So,
I think that's the meaningful choices, I think, is where it comes down to. You know, like when a player feels like their experience, like the things that they're being faced with and the ways of responding to it, feel meaningful, and it's not just like, oh, the die screwed me. You know, like I think that helps. You know, like obviously failure is part of the game, success is part of the game, random chance is an element, but I can think of a lot of scenes I've been in where like you miss one roll, the ceiling crushes you, you die. There's no payoff in that scene whatsoever. It's not, there's nothing to it that was fun. I didn't think about it. I didn't come up with any clever thing that happened there. It wasn't a decision I made. It was just a die roll. But if I get killed after making a series of decisions that made sense and the stuff just played out the way it would naturally work, everything fit the right way, and it seemed reasonable, I'm like, okay, that's a legit death. I feel like that was a good moment. The scene played out well. You know?
Yeah, there's a couple of things I know I do. First off, as someone who pretty much always homebrews and rarely runs a module, there's rarely the one bad roll in the ceiling caves in on you and you die from it, because I don't write that to begin with. Like that again. You want to avoid some of this stuff out there, DMs. If you want to play if you want to preserve the integrity of your dice, what you do out there is you don't write that crap to begin with, and second, you don't ask for rolls for crap you don't want to do, and the third thing you do. And I forgot where I was going with this, but
the third thing you do is you write down your points ahead of time.
Come on,
right? You write down your points ahead of time.
Rookie mistake. I will going back to this idea of failure and how I was kind of afraid of it. I think going back to Kids on Bikes, they allow the player to narrate the failure a lot of the time. So it's not depending on the severity of the fail, you're going to get to tell the DM what happened to you. And oftentimes that's more punitive than what the DM would have done, right? Mm-hmm. So that's always fun. It kind of puts the failure back on the player, and you tell me what would happen as you were trying to climb this fence, but you didn't make it. What is that going to look like? I like that mechanic. Because again, it's putting investment into the character, the players and their characters. It's allowing them to kind of control some of that narrative a little bit more. I mean, you have to be a forgiving DM, and you have to be one who's not so controlling to allow that to happen. But I think it's a great mechanic, and it makes that failure easier for everybody sitting at the table, I think, and a little more fulfilling.
Yeah, I think it does too. I mean, it creates ownership. It helps preserve trust at the table, because it's not the DM coming to screw you. Right. It's okay. The dice went bad, and I get to talk about my story.
Yeah.
I think anytime a player gets a chance to interject some story or flavor into how things play out, it's rewarding.
Well, they know their character better than you do, so they're going to have something ready like that is going to be better than you could have come up with anyways. So, in most cases, and that's fun and rewarding, and I do like that.
Yeah,
and again, this is something you can take back even into 5e.
Yep.
You can roll a die, call for a roll from a character, and when they fail, be like, describe your failure. I mean, it's got to be a failure, but describe your failure. Like,
Yeah, and again, certain DMs do that naturally. I know early when I was DMing, it was hard for me. I wanted to control the situation as much as possible, but you kind of let loose the reins a little bit as I've gotten better, and you give more agency to the players and let them narrate that failure, because again, going back, failures are they build up and they create those great moments later on down the road. And if the players are totally invested in those failures, they're going to definitely be invested in those successes when they finally hit. So
yeah, I think you bring up a really interesting point there, in that I think as DMs progress, they do hit that point where they realize that iron-fisted control is not the correct path. And it's always interesting to me to watch people go through that phase, to watch them in their early days running games and see how they do it. And you can see some of the things that creates that, like what's the internal problem that's going on that's creating this fear of giving away power. I guess we'll say control in the game. And I think people are afraid of improvisation a lot of times, so it takes them a while to develop that skill set. And I think that comes down to a lot of times their prep. A lot of times people are really spending they need to go this way because this is what I know. I'm not comfortable outside of this window, so please just let this happen. And I think some of it too is that I think a lot of times DMs are afraid to be surprised in their games. For the same reasons. Again, I think it's because you don't know what to expect, where to go. Or if you're on Roll20, you don't want the map to suddenly not be the relevant map you need. So there's some things like that. There's a lot of factors that kind of come into railroading your players a little bit, and some maps and Roll20, whatever it might be. That's an interesting point. Mm-hmm. I forgot where I was going there, but
now with the stream, just while we're on the topic of fudging, do you do your dice rolls as a DM for Strahd in stream?
Okay, so for Strahd, no, I roll physical dice, so they're hidden. The players roll physical dice too, even though we're on Roll20. I have a buildup of dice that I like to use. I spent money on them. I want to use them.
You got the sexy skull splitter dice.
Yeah. So for that reason, no, they couldn't see it. But I would say if I was rolling on Roll20, I would have live rolls. Just kind of let loose that let's get rid of that veil and you can see, but I'm not rolling there. So I don't know.
That's one of the crazy things about me. I don't use the DM screen even in my live games. I never have. I don't. I just, the dice go where they go, man. I ride the chaos to whatever conclusion it leads me to.
Well, I think that's where I'm okay giving up that control as a hidden dice. Mm-hmm. But I often have the minis set up, and maybe the monster manual open, and sometimes you got some peering eyes that you got to keep some stuff secret. I think that's the biggest benefit of my DM screen when I'm doing home games.
Yeah, in person.
Now less to cover the dice, more to cover up the goodies I have.
You can't read my writing in my book. It wouldn't matter. It's all shorthand.
Power right there.
There you go.
I got my own language.
Yeah.
Because so many of your binders that you've left in my place, by the way.
Yeah, jeez.
There's 20 of them. Yeah. Well, I mean, there used to be. I don't know if they're still up there or not, but there's a whole bookcase filled with old 3-ring binders and spiral binders that you had of old stories.
Some of them probably are mine.
Yeah. Oh, they're all yours. I went back and looked at some of them. Yeah, but it's interesting because with the stream situation, you've got there's a dynamic of play with seeing the dice rolls. If you capture it, then the audience gets the oohs and the ahs of the moment of watching the die tumble or the number pop up. And, it's, again, if you have all of your DM situations going live, there's no room to do the fudges if it, makes for a better scene. But you also have the excitement that the audience gets to be participating in it. So it's another one of those delicate dances we got to play.
Yeah, and I guess, do what's comfortable for you. There's there's no right or wrong way to do this. Just do what's comfortable for you. Do what is okay with your players. again, set that up in a session 0. Hey guys, do you care if I roll behind the screen? If they have a problem with it, okay, move it out from the screen. Do what's going to be best for your party, and like Dustin said, let the dice fall where they may. And really, if you've gone through the progressions that I have, you've kind of eliminated the reason for most, if all, of your dice fudging.
Yep.
So it really doesn't matter where I roll them. It's going to be what it's going to be.
I try to pace a lot of my combats and my games are fewer and far between anyway.
Totally.
So a lot of the situations where you get that like quote unquote character death, like the random death, like I don't do random encounters very often. I don't do the traps that like one wrong move and like character dies from it. Like I said, I avoid a lot of that, like, so when there's a combat in my game, typically it's either barely get a challenge and it'll give you a good chance to do some flourish and do some fun, or it's something that if you die to it, you won't feel so bad. So, and most times in my games, the characters kill themselves or each other. So I've got that going for me.
Yeah,
so,
there is that.
Definitely had that.
Talk about a game where the dice told the story. That last Zweihander game I ran, the last session, 11 critical fails by my players in a 4-hour session. That's all they did all night long was critical fails. So, they wrote a story I could have never written, and it was awesome. So
and
those dice go.
And that's great. That's the way it shakes out, and you got to be willing to roll with that new narrative, right? You may not be the hero today because these dice are going to help tell that story, and you have to be okay with that. Like you said, like one of those 4 outcomes of the dice roll. If you're not okay with it,
and persistent worlds help that a bit, because if you have a total party wipe of these characters who are on their way to being heroes, like now they become a part of some bigger world story that you're not losing them forever. You monuments in their name, like you can like do cool stuff, right? Like, you're not, you don't want to Inigo Montoya where the next 5 characters come in to avenge the 5 who just died. But I mean, you make it part of that world, right? Like,
well, and that's kind of, going back to Tomb of Annihilation, that's kind of where we ended. We did not succeed. It was a TPK in the final tomb, where we did. There's 2 different levels of success in that module. Again, spoilers. One, you defeat the Lich, Serac, and that's the greatest pinnacle that you could have reached. The other one is you get rid of the Soulmonger. Well, we got rid of the Soulmonger, and that word spread throughout all of the Sword Coast. We did not defeat the Lich. But Bob did a great job at the end of kind of writing that narrative of like, okay, now there are these shrines of these players that got rid of the Soulmonger and alleviated that problem that was persisting. And that's cool. Like, that was fulfilling for my character. It wasn't the ending I wanted. Of course, I want to go home and have that life of an aged adventurer, but that didn't happen. I died. Here's my legacy. And still, that's heroic. That's fulfilling. That's fun. And Bob did a good job of kind of creating that and making sure we got to tell that story of what would happen in our legacy.
Absolutely.
And, I don't think you could do it better than that. Like, the TPK didn't bother me because of that.
Right, exactly. And that's what I'm saying. Like, if you're not playing in that world again, technically, a good epilogue then is very important. Past that kind of situation. Like I said, everybody hates Boromir till Boromir dies. But then throughout the entire second set of books, like, it's all about Boromir. Like, his sacrifice meant something then going forward, and he becomes a little more heroic, even though when he was alive, you were kind of like, this guy's a complete a-hole.
I love it.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it as a DM, making sure that the experience is a good one for players. And, it's that I think that is a tip that any DM needs to pick up, at some point, is to understand how to make failure a good experience, how to make death a good experience, how to honor the player's time, making sure that, when they do something successful, it feels good. When they fail, it feels good. Or it feels appropriate, I guess, to be more than good. Sometimes it doesn't feel good, but that it feels like that it makes the next scene matter. Like when I play a game, I want to know that there are risks. I want to know that if I succeed, it's because I did something important.
Right.
Like I made good decisions, or I got lucky, and that feels good, And I think some of that comes down to you have to have a world where characters die sometimes. but you do have to play it well.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and then just be really good at I always think about, like, when I'm going into a combat, like, if one of these characters doesn't make it out of here and they got to make a new one, like, always kind of have an in. Like, you always think about how you have to have an out, always have an in. Like, how's the next guy getting here? Like, that's hard to do in a dungeon sometimes. Like, you're 5 levels down, you ain't seen any friendly light for days. Like, where's the next guy coming in at, you know? So,
well, and that's kind of the problem with, not a problem, but with Barovia is that you're kind of chosen to come to Barovia. You don't just show up. So if one of them, I'm working on, in case one of them dies, is our new character going to get here? Is it a Barovian? Is it some new adventurer coming in that the gates have opened up for?
Yeah. So someone put a quarter in the machine and hit the button. A new challenger has entered the arena.
You gotta have that ready, I think. And if you're not aware of that, and if you're not going to have those consequences, then I don't think you ever think of it, and you're not prepared for it when it does happen. So with time, you kind of get there.
Yeah, it's a developed skill for sure, and it saves you so much work when it does come up. Because you can just transition to the next beat. You can. Yeah, we had a character die in Tomb of Annihilation, and by the end of the session, his new character was already woven into the story. Like it's just we had that ready, and now he's okay. You're not missing any time at the table. You didn't even have to step away. As unrealistic as that can sound at times, but it was fun and it worked, and it was seamless.
Yeah, because once you develop that skill, then the other things that can, because really, when you think about it, like when you talk about fudging dice, like usually it's to avoid a character death. Like usually that's where DMs will be like, okay, I don't want to kill you. I've hit you twice. Yeah. These are going to be normal hits instead. So like, if they're good, like you said, you almost always fudge in the favor of the player, and usually it's because things are going way worse than you expected. Yeah. So at that point, like I said, once you develop those skills where you're good at getting a new character in, you're able to really work with that sort of work with that new angle, or help them build that new character and give them good reasons to think that next one's going to be fun. And once players trust you as the DM to be able to do that, then when something tragic happens, you're more likely to let it ride and know that the next thing coming in is going to be fun and they're still going to enjoy it. So
well, and two, like they've played in the world for the lifespan of that character, so they've already kind of got the understanding. So this new character is going to come in and hit that ground running. I like that idea. Thinking of Barovia, if a new character comes in that's already been in Barovia for a time, they're now a point of contact, a bit of knowledge for these adventurers that are trying to piece it all together still. So you as the DM are now feeding this character, who's then going to feed it to the party. I like that kind of stuff. I like when my characters are kind of the authority on a topic, and the DM, like, you ask the DM, would I know that? Oh yeah, I would know that. And you're able to now role play that information out to the party. That's always fun. And there's an opportunity for that here in Barovia. We'll see what happens, but
makes people feel good too, being able to have something to transition with. Yeah, I mean, we got some people in the chat making some funny comments here. Death Angel Shadow saying, "Shh, don't let me know that we do that."
Oh shoot!
And again, you guys are saying I often fudge because I wasn't expecting them to do so well, and I want the fight to last a little bit longer. Yeah, I can see that.
That's the worst.
I could see that. You put a lot of time and effort. Actually, this is a point I was going to make a little bit ago, was that I think the times I've seen fudging done correctly, it's been a lot of times because maybe you design the fight and with a certain expectation of it being X amount of challenging. Like, if things go really bad for them, it's going to be this bad, and then you deal with it. And then you get to look at it and you realize, I didn't build this encounter correctly. This thing is caving their heads in, and it doesn't look like they ever had a chance. And I don't intend for them to run from this scene. Maybe I need to dial the numbers down a little bit.
That's where those D&D CR levels kind of get you in trouble a little bit. Like, he's a CR 5, they're level 5, should be, it's never that way. And that just comes with time and trying to, knowing monster abilities and knowing your characters and the amount of magic items they have and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But those battles that you prep, they're like, especially when you're streaming because you're hitting a time slot, and you're like, okay, this is going to take up an hour and a half of the session, of the 3-hour session. We're good. I got a little bit of RP before, maybe a little bit after, and then that battle takes 15 minutes. You're like, oh, I haven't really prepped too much after that. Now you're in trouble. So yeah, you might fudge like, ooh, no, actually that didn't hit, or I didn't subtract all the hit points from the bad guy. But so in Barovia, there was an encounter where the CR levels just totally didn't match. They were level 3 and they were fighting. I can't remember what it was, but the CR level was so much higher. And I'm like, they're not even going to go do that. My players are savvy enough. They're going to see that threat and walk away. Well, no, they went, and the party was split, so it wasn't even a whole party. And they go down there, and they annihilate this guy in like 3 rounds. And I'm like, how in the heck did that happen? There's no way these 3 players should have taken this guy out that fast, judging by CR levels. And it's a hard thing to plan for him. It was a weird moment, man.
Oh, it sure is. So we do have a question in chat from Getting Dicey asking if there's a link for Chris's channel. And we are somehow already into our last 10 minutes anyway. That's usually where we do our plugs. So,
oh, holy moly.
Right? It just flies past.
There it is right there if you want it, Reagan. Thanks for stopping by tonight,
Absolutely.
by the way.
I mean, it's probably like super early in the morning for you.
DM Reagan from New Zealand chiming in there. He's a former, he's been on the show as well. Maybe actually the week after your brother Bob was on the show. I think about it. Like it was way back in, but yeah.
Yeah, so if you're interested in checking his channel out, it's right there, the twitch.tv/featherfalltt. Yep. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about where they can find you in terms of like YouTube or anything else that you may have?
Yeah, so Featherfall Tabletop, most places, Featherfall TT on Twitter and on Twitch. The Twitch banner has all of our links to Discord and all that kind of stuff. Featherfall Tabletop on YouTube. You can find us on podcasts most places. I mean, we upload through Anchor. Anchor does a pretty good job of filtering out to all the other feeds out there. Yeah, that's where you could find us. I mean, I'm most active in our Discord, not so much on the Twitter, but you can find me personally on Twitter at 2Sox05. If you I don't tweet that much. It's not that exciting. A couple plugs for things coming up, if I can.
Do it. Yeah, absolutely. Lineup. That's what it's for. Do it.
All right. So I alluded to the Wild Mount campaign coming up. That is coming up on Wednesday, session 1. We have a session 0 uploaded to our YouTube and podcast. If you want to catch up, we kind of talk about our characters and some of their motivations and what they're doing in Wild Mount, Trostenwald specifically. So you can check that out. Wednesday will be live 6:30 p.m. Pacific time. What else? I had something else. Dang it. That's why I wrote notes. Oh, we have a Force and Destiny campaign starting using the Fantasy Flight Games Star Wars Force and Destiny system. That is starting Sunday on our channel, Featherfall TT. That'll be at 6:30 Pacific time again. We're super. I'm playing in that one as well. Bob's DMing that one as well. But we got a couple new players in there.
That's some crazy dice right there. If you ain't seen them before, woo.
Yeah, that's like you have to get specific dice for that.
Are they crazier than DCC?
Oh, they don't have numbers. They're just symbols.
Yeah,
you just have to know what the symbols mean, Jeff, and it's crazy.
Well, luckily there is a digital roller that calculates that all for you. But we played through the starter set, the Mountaintop Rescue and Lure of the Lost, I think. I can't remember what the second part was called. That's on our YouTube channel and podcast. We played through that, liked it so much that we're kind of doing a fun, kind of campy little campaign going on. So that's coming up on Sunday. That'll be opposite of Curse of Strahd. So every Sunday there'll be something on our channel, either Star Wars or Curse of Strahd. Like I said, we got some one-shots will be coming out here pretty soon. They'll be system specific for a month, and then we'll play through those and then start over the next month.
Busy,
dude. I know
they have a breakneck pace over there. I mean, they're a very aggressive schedule. It's a very aggressive schedule.
We've kind of had some downtime recently where I know it's going to pick up here, and I'm kind of excited because it's weird when I don't have a video to edit. I'm like, I should be doing something, but I'm not. So we'll get those going here pretty soon. But check us out, Featherfall Tabletop anywhere.
Well, sounds
I
like you
will
got a
say
new fan
this,
right there.
just kind of going back, we did, like, again, one of those bucket list things. Like, we did a charity stream a while ago. We raised some money for COVID relief. If anybody who donated and played in those games, I'll give you a shout out and say thank you very much. That was fulfilling to set a goal and blow that goal out of the water. It was just fun to do. I haven't told enough people about how exciting that was for us, so I'll use your guys' platform to do that.
Please do. That's awesome.
I saw some of those games. They were fantastic games. I was watching from work, so I do my best to try to tune in when I can.
We did a 12-hour charity stream, 4 different systems, just back to back to back. Had tons of fun. Hopefully we'll do it again here sometime for something less crazy as COVID relief, but just.
Oh, we got a raid here last minute from Smart Gamer Network. Raid.
Yeah, I appreciate
Thank you, Zaylin and the guys over at Smart Gamer Network for coming in here. We are wrapping up here with Chris from Featherfall Tabletop. He was just telling everyone where you can find him over there at Featherfall TT on Twitch. So if you're following in here now, we're going to raid somewhere in a minute, but also make sure you take a second to go over there and find him over at Featherfall.
Yeah, please. We'd love to have you. We'll get you in some of these one-shots. That'll be coming out pretty soon, and we'll have a good time.
Smart Gamer Network, actually, I'll give them a little shout out real quick. They actually started a tabletop RPG, kind of a talk show podcast that they just started this last week. Mask of Mimicry, I think, is the name of it. With Velen. Not Zalen. Velik, I think his name is. Yes, Velik.
Yeah.
Is the guy running that. So I'll be in some talks with him, see if he wants to come on here sometime soon. But in the meantime, again, go ahead and finish telling everyone they can find you.
Yeah, Featherfall Tabletop everywhere. Like I said, I'll just take these last few minutes and thank you guys here at Tabletop to Keyboard. You guys are great and putting this on and having me on here, being the first set of brothers that have got to be on your talk show.
It's the closest to a repeat guest that we've had yet. It is.
I'll wear that like a badge. And just
you coming on
you
and
guys
talking
are
to us.
great group of guys over here at TT2KB, and happy to be here. And thank you for having me.
Well, thank you very much. Much appreciated. Yeah, it's been really good having other channels that are kind of doing what we're doing and some other things we're not doing, and being able to see the experiences and how things are developing and building a wider community. It's just been really nice to be able to see all that interplay that we've been beginning, our audience becoming your audience and vice versa. So, yeah, I mean, you guys are expanding out to a lot of shows. We've been doing something similar, and for those of you guys in the chat right now, you can actually look down below. It should be in the panels, unless we moved them. And you can see some of the shenanigans we're up to. It's a lot of nights a week. So
we have a very aggressive schedule here, too. So
yeah, maybe not as aggressive quite as yours.
It's cut into my ability to watch some of Chris's shows, unfortunately.
Yeah,
that's the problem, but that's
so true. I always tell myself, I want to be more present in other people's streams and kind of, give back as much as I can, but oof.
The answer, Reagan, is there's 6 of us. That's how we fit it in. There's 6 of us doing it all. It ain't one person.
Yeah, we all have different talents too. So we got some different things. The tabletop to keyboard being kind of a catch-all for a lot of the hobbies we have. So tonight, Monday, obviously you're with us here, Wisdom Check. That's where we talk to people and have a great time, like our great guest tonight. And Tuesday night we have Bardic Knowledge, and that's put on by Cameron, and he makes music for our game. So we've been dealing with the fact that we don't want to use copyrighted music and get slapped on YouTube for it. So we've stuck him with the task of making cool music for us. And he knows some music theory, gets on there and works with some professional equipment and stuff, and it's pretty awesome. So
it is a really, really cool thing to see done live, if you've never seen it done.
It's really cool. And in that same vein, we've also got Levi, who is the DM for our 5th edition game called the Everstorm. Everstorm runs every other Saturday night, and he's making another show called DM2 Art. And on that, he's making the character portraits for all of our characters. And that's been pretty fantastic to deal with, too. So you get to see his whole process, working with Photoshop, teaching how to use the tools. Again, he's an art teacher, so he also has a pretty extensive not backstory. He's got extensive knowledge about what he's doing in the art world, and he could talk to you about the processes and the things you may want to learn as you go along. And then Wednesday night, I am running the Pathfinder 2nd edition campaign. Right now we're doing a module. Thought we were going to have a party wipe this week, but they somehow squeaked past. And so now we're continuing on with the module. And we're talking about possibly transitioning to a homebrew down the road. So that may be in the works. And then occasionally on Thursday nights, we do video game nights. We've been doing those pretty hot and heavy. We may be dialing that back. I'm not sure just yet. But we're going to be playing that by ear. And I'm trying to think, there's more stuff we do on this show and this channel.
Well, I'll tell you a little bit about it, Jeff, because you're clearly running out of gas here on me.
Yeah.
So Friday nights is a night off here. We don't do anything on Fridays typically. Yeah. Saturdays, every other Saturday currently, and this coming Saturday is one of those Saturdays. Mm-hmm. You can find our 5e game, The Everstorm, ran by DM Levi. I know Two Sox is a fan. He's been there several times. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to spoil anything, but there's some shit going on behind the scenes at TT2KB right now that is going to fucking blow your socks off when you see this shit.
Both of them.
It's pretty fucking amazing. Like, I'm not going any further into that right now, but when it's ready, it's going to be fucking awesome. So, just keep watching Everstorm every other Saturday. It's going to be badass. And that's again on Saturdays, 10 p.m. Central Time here on TT2KB. After that, Sunday, we currently don't have anything, but coming soon, my Zweihander game, Horror in Huttenberg, will be picking up. I've got 3 cast members. I'm looking for maybe 1 or 2 more. So I will, once I got that cast ready to go, you're going to see character creation done live, and then the game will be resuming about a year after where Terra and Treefell left off. So if you haven't seen Terra and Treefell, you can find it on our YouTube channel, along with all the past episodes of the Wisdom Check, Pathfinder 2nd Edition, Fall of Plaguestone games, all of our stuff we have done here, Bardic Knowledge, DM to Art, it's all on our YouTube channel as well. So if you hate Twitch's phone app and you want to watch this crap after the fact, that's where you can go find it, because their phone app, even after updates, still sucks. For work so I can watch you guys live as much as I can, but it's horrible. That's our content that we do here. But we're not done. We actually have another stream we need to talk about a little bit.
That is correct.
And that would be one ran by Jeff and his father, David Lee Pancake, who is taking Levi's artwork that he has done for Everstorm, our original artwork of our characters, and he is sculpting them. 3D sculpting all of our characters. It is
awesome.
Like,
that's awesome.
Starting with Kodo, the Dragonborn Paladin, played by Clint. So a couple of those episodes are now in the bag, and those are also on Sundays. Jeff, what time is that stuff on again?
3 p.m. Eastern time, and the channel is DL Pancake.
DL Pancake.
And
so
capital on the first 3 letters.
And again, when you talk about Bardic Knowledge, DM to Art, and DL Pancake stream, like, those things are processes that you're used to seeing the end product, but seeing the time and talent it takes to make those things happen gives you a far better appreciation for the price tag on some of those things. And in the case of David Lee Pancake, DL Pancake, he is a professional artist, and without conventions going on, that's putting a huge hit on what he's been able to do income-wise this year. And so, piggybacking off of all of that, like, when you see him going through this process, go look at his shop, pick up something, pick up something and help support, some of these artists out there right now who are really struggling because of this whole COVID situation. And, if you're able to, and just take time and just watch the amount of care he puts into creating these things. Like, it's amazing to see it done. So again, that's something that we want to make sure that we get out there is, and he's doing a giveaway if he gets to 50 followers and hits affiliate, and he's at like 35 or 6 or something after the last stream. So
he's
get in there now and you can win a piece. So
yeah, he's giving away one of the pieces called Smidge. So if you go on his website, you can find that. It's a green one. And so it's a little bitty guy. He's really cute. And so he's going to give that away when we hit to the 50. And we'll be doing more giveaways as we go. And there's a lot of stuff he's planning on giving out. So he's also talking about making those casts of our characters available down the road. So if
he can save the time and energy of Bauer, and nobody wants a Bauer.
Somebody out there.
We'll see.
me. I'll just buy the original from him. He doesn't have to make a cast. It's all good.
Yeah.
And if you guys,
his work's amazing. That's next level stuff, guys. That's amazing.
So much.
His artwork hangs on the walls of Stefan Picorni and Satine Phoenix. Like those people all have his art. So to have him sculpting our characters is just unreal.
That's pretty cool.
I'm a pretty proud son, I'll say.
So
it's been pretty cool. So yeah, again, I want to say thank you very much for joining us tonight, Chris. It's been a good conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It finally happened. We a couple reschedules and we made it happen. I'm happy to be here. Yep.
It's been great. And Dustin, who do we have coming to join us next week to sit in the wonderful seat in the middle there?
And here I was just pulling up a raid list.
I know. I was making you juggle a couple things here. So I want to say thank you to the audience, by the way, for joining us tonight and sticking around with us. We do this for you guys, and so it's great to have you here and getting the feedback.
Oh man, next week we got Maddie Morg coming on the show.
So that one's gonna be nice. Matty Morg's he runs a gaming store online basically, and he's very, very, very good at bringing in new players. Like I actually sat and watched him do a session with just somebody new who came to his channel and had never role played before, and he was like, "Oh, okay, hold on, you don't know what this is about. We're gonna run a scene for you." So I'm gonna describe a scene. Here's a picture of what's going on, and this is what's happening. What do you do?
Maddie's a real chill, cool guy. We're glad to have him on the show next week. It's going to be a lot of fun talking with him. We got a fan there, Maddie. Someone's got the emotes. Somebody's been to his channel a time or two. So we're seeing a few emotes there.
It's going to be great. So look forward to that next week. So again, thank you to the audience. Thank you for joining us. And Dustin, where are we taking our audience? Who are we going to help along with our awesome presence of cool people in our chat?
I think tonight, I think we hit Scabby Rooster last time, right? So, you know what? I like Spooky. Let's go talk to Spooky Sprinkles.
Spooky Sprinkles?
She's doing art tonight.
Yeah, nice. And keep that rolling.
We'll show some love to Spooky.
Sweet. So stick with us. We're going to go check out an artist doing their thing. Should be pretty fun. All right. So while he's setting up that, I'll go ahead and get us on our transition screen here to the outro, and we'll see you on the flip side.
Catch you later, people.